Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about being a teenage mum. Lately I've been seeing a lot of videos about teenage mothers that's viewing a positive aspect of being a teen mother, where the father is still in the picture, they've got a good income coming off of YouTube, and usually they have very supportive family members and just things like that, which sadly isn't always the case. So I'm going to tell you my experience of being a teenage parent, because my experience is probably the opposite of most of the videos that I have watched on YouTube about being a teenage mother. So I think it's only fair to get a side from each. You know, these other girls are doing the positive, where the dad is still in the picture, they've got money, they're being supported, and then there's the other side, which is where I came from, which is the opposite. So if you don't know me, I got pregnant for the first time when I was 17 and the second time when I was 19. I'm now 24, so I've definitely experienced being a teenage mum. And before I get into my story of my experience of being a teenage mother, I just want to do a little disclaimer that this is not bashing my kid's father at all. This is just my side of the story and my experience of what it was like when I was younger and when I was pregnant and when I was a teenage mother, whatever, you know what I'm saying. So this is not bashing him at all. My children love him, he's in their lives now, and I'm not making this video to put him down or anything like that. So the first time I got pregnant when I was 17, I had just been dumped by my kid's dad 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant, and he did not want to get back together, and he did not want me to have the child. He did not want me to have the child, he wanted me to have an abortion, which is fine, that's his opinion. He didn't have to want to be a dad. So I went through my whole pregnancy completely by myself. We never got back together when I was pregnant, and I was working a casual job at the time. So I paid for all my doctor's appointments, I paid for all my son's clothes, all his toys, all his everything. Did get gifted a lot of things from family and friends at my baby shower or whatever, which was amazing and a really big help, but I still did pay for everything. His dad did not pay for anything. He didn't pay for any ultrasounds or anything, which ultrasounds here where I live are very expensive, about $200 I believe, around $100 to $200 I think. So I paid for that completely by myself. So you need to think, if you're going to be a teenage parent, your father might not be in the picture and you're going to be having to pay for 100% of everything. And then when I eventually had my son, I only had my mum in the hospital room. I didn't have my kid's dad. His dad and I actually lived together. We weren't together as a couple, but I needed somewhere to live, because as a young mum who does not work full-time, I could not find a house of my own. So I could not get approved for any rental houses or anything like that. So the only choice I had at the time was to move in with my kid's dad's family. Even though he was around, technically, I was still a single mother and I was still doing everything on my own, which was really, really hard. It's really hard to look after a baby by yourself. I did it and a lot of other women do it, but it is hard. And especially when you're young and most of your friends are off doing fun things and going out and doing all this fun stuff, it's hard to see that and be stuck at home with a baby. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my children. My son is 5 and my daughter is 4 now. Like, I'm way past all of this, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's a big factor. Like, your friends aren't going to wait for you. And my friends didn't. I don't hang out with any of the people that I was friends with when I was 17. Like, between 17 and 24 is a big age difference. So I gave birth to my son when I was 18 and I ended up getting pregnant again when I was 19. They have the same dad. Again, this time he didn't want to be in the picture. He didn't want to get back together. So again, I was doing everything on my own, and I'm not trying to blame anyone. This is my own fault. I should have been more careful, obviously. Like, I'm not stupid in the fact that, like, I shouldn't have got pregnant once or twice. So when I got pregnant the second time with my daughter, I again was doing everything by myself, but this time I had nowhere to live. I was living somewhere else, and then I got pregnant, and then I had to move back to where I live now, and there was nowhere for me to go. Again, I couldn't get approved for a house. I tried for my entire pregnancy and nowhere would approve me for a rental home, which was really, really hard. Like, I've got 2 kids, I'm a single mother, and I can't get approved for a house. I ended up having to live on my mum's lounge room floor on a mattress, which I'm completely grateful for. She didn't have to let me into her house. She didn't have to let my son into her house, and she has small children of her own, so I'm very grateful that she did that for me. But at the same time, it's not ideal. You don't want to live on someone's lounge room floor when you're pregnant. No one wants that. And again, I was paying for all my doctor's appointments by myself. I was paying for all my daughter's clothes by myself, and I couldn't really buy anything because didn't have a house. I was living on my mother's bedroom floor with nowhere to set up a cot. I knew that I could not live there when I was having 2 children. And that was very stressful for me because there's like a deadline, you know, when you hit 40 weeks pregnant, you pop out a baby. There's nowhere for that baby to go unless you have an area for it, which I didn't have an area for it. There was not even an area for me and my son, barely. Oh. Don't you knock my camera over. I was about 36 weeks when I finally got approved for a house. So it took the entire time for me to be able to get a house, and I had not been able to buy anything for the baby. Oh. Because there was simply nowhere to put it. So here I was, 9 months pregnant, moving things into a house by myself. My mum helped me, obviously, but there's only so much 2 women can do. My kid's dad did not help at all. Oh, get your head out of the camera. Come up here. If we're not together, he doesn't have to help me. So at this point, he is taking our son every second weekend. At this point, he is more involved than what he was when I was pregnant and before I moved away. So I ended up giving birth. Again, my mother was in the hospital room with me. Their father was not, which is fine. I wouldn't have been comfortable, you know, being that vulnerable and exposed in front of someone that I hadn't been with for like 3 years at this point. When she was 4 days old and my son was 18 months old, their father moved away. He moved 8 hours away to another city, so he wasn't having the kids every second weekend. He wasn't having my son every second weekend. He was not around. It was just me, completely 100% on my own. I guess he would have them whenever he would come back, which at this point was not very often. I think at one point he was gone for 2 months straight. So as you can imagine, that was hard. Having a brand new baby and a 1-year-old completely on your own with no help and not even a day to yourself is really, really hard. And I never asked for help from my family. In my head, it's my fault I got pregnant and it was my choice to keep the baby. So it was my responsibility to raise these kids. It wasn't my family's responsibility to have my kids every few days. It wasn't my mum's responsibility to babysit for me. I never asked for that help. And I don't think anyone should completely rely on their family to just take their kids for days at a time. I think no matter what age you are, you need to look after your own kids and you need to raise your own kids. So if you think that you're going to be having a baby when you're young and your family's going to step in and you're going to be able to go out every weekend with your friends, I really think that you should reconsider having a baby, because that's not fair. It's not fair on your family and it's not fair on the baby that you brought into the world. Now I got very lucky and I met my current husband when my kids were still young. My daughter was 1.5 and my son was 3. I was fine and willing to be a single parent if that's how it was going to go for a very long time. But I was definitely lucky that I met someone that could accept my children and accept me and accept us into his life, if that makes sense. But that doesn't happen for everyone. Now, my experience as a teenage mother is definitely on the negative side. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I don't recommend just being young and trying to get pregnant. I definitely don't recommend that, and that's not what I did. Now being 24 and being someone who is currently trying for another baby, this experience is going to be so different from the 2 experiences that I had years ago. Like now I'm going to have someone who loves me, who loves this baby, who wants this baby, who can help pay for everything, who can look after me. Everyone deserves that. No matter what age you are, you deserve to have someone who's going to love you and be there for you, especially when you're pregnant and having a baby. And I think back at the girl that I used to be years and years ago, and it makes me sad that I had to go through this completely on my own and have no help from my kid's dad or from anyone, and it makes me really sad. It also makes me really appreciate the situation that I'm going to be in when I do get pregnant again in the next few months or whatever. So I just wanted to make this video about my more negative experience of being a teen mum, because I definitely think that there needs to be 2 sides of every spectrum, and I'm really happy for the teenage girls that get to have it exactly how it's supposed to be, with, you know, the support and the money and all that kind of thing. But it's definitely not the case for everyone, and it definitely wasn't the case for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it, and in a way I hope this deters any young girls from trying to get pregnant when they're too young. So thank you for watching my video, and I'll see you in my next one.